Besties, another month has come to an end, so it is time for the May reading wrap-up. I read 8 books in May, which isn't the best, but it's also not that bad. I read a lot of really good books, so I'm kind of excited to share with you all the books I read this past month. So I read 4 contemporary romance books, and I read 4 fantasy/fantasy romance books. People call it romantasy. Is that what it is? Yeah, romantasy is what people have been calling it. And I am so excited to talk about these first 2 books that I read because they are some of my all-time favorite books now. The first book I read in the month of May was Once Upon a Broken Heart. This is the UK cover because I liked it better than the US cover, so I got this one. And I love this book so much. I think I gave it a 4.5 stars because this book, it's a little, not much happens, but at the same time, it's just a very comforting world. So we have Evangeline Fox, who's in love with a boy, first love, very much in love. But then all of a sudden, he's gonna get married to another person. And so then she makes a deal with a fate to sort of stop that wedding so she can marry her love. And what it says right here is never make a deal with a fate because it will inevitably go wrong. Fates are something you don't want to make a deal with because they're going to twist everything. And they're going to grant what you want, but then they're going to make your life 10 times worse. Yeah, this book is actually so good. It gives off this very fairy tale world. And I feel like that's what I'm looking for in a fantasy. I really like fairy tales. I'm a big fan of fairy tales. It gives off the whole Wonderland type feel vibe to it. Our fate in here is Jax. He is the Prince of Hearts. His whole deal is that anytime he kisses someone, they die unless they are his one true love. And then he's just heartbroken his whole life. So, if you like this album, this is the book version of this album. This series is the book version of Lover. It is so Taylor Swift coded. Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. Hello. Jax is the Heartbreak Prince. He just is. He is. And then this also talks a lot about the Ballad of the Archer and the Fox. The Archer by Taylor Swift. And just the vibes of the Lover album is this. So another book that I read this month was the second book in this series, which is The Ballad of Never After. This is 5 stars. This is my second favorite book of all time behind Daisy Jones and the Six because, that book is perfect. And so is this. This book is also perfect. It is so, so, so good. This is going to be a trilogy. The 3rd book comes out in October. This is a continuation of this story, obviously. And they're not the same size, but it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. This book just had a crazy ending to it, and this picks up right where this leaves off, and it's amazing. It is so good. You see more of Evangeline, Jax, the love she had. This world is so magical, and it just brings me so much joy, and it's very, very comforting. This was my only 5-star read of the month, and I think it's just because after reading this, what can compare? Nothing can compare. This is fantastic. Read these books and then be upset that you have to wait until October for the 3rd one to come out. Alrighty, now I'm going to move on. This is a fantasy book with a subplot of romance, and wow. This is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I have been following Lauren Roberts on TikTok for years. Right when she decided she was going to write this book, I followed her and I got to watch her make a book and talk about publishing and all of that. This is a self-published book that she made that is a fantasy, and I enjoyed it, if you can't tell by the tabs. I tabbed it and I really enjoyed it. I do have to say, like, I feel like you can tell that it is a debut novel, but the ending is so good. She markets this book as enemies to lovers, but I feel like the enemies were sort of more one-sided. Like, I feel like one character hated the other and the other character was just kind of oblivious of it. I really liked the character Kai in this book. He carried it. So I ended up rating this like 4 stars, and I'm like very excited for the second book. So I am filming this on May 31st, and she's announcing something tomorrow, June 1st, and I'm pretty sure she's going to be announcing the second book tomorrow. Also, look how gorgeous this is. Like, it has like little flowers and stuff on it. Like, that is so fun. Love it when books do that. She also markets this as a mix of Hunger Games and Red Queen. I'm not very familiar as to what happens in Red Queen. I haven't read it. But I could totally see how this like resembles Hunger Games. We have our female main character of Peyton. She is an ordinary living in a world for like elites is what they call them, or extraordinaries. Before this book takes place, there was some sort of plague that like gave people powers, and then like half of the people were left without powers. So the king banishes all of the ordinaries, is what they call them, the people without powers. It's like illegal to live there if you do not have powers. So she is sort of living her life pretending that she is like a psychic and like has powers, even though that's not the case. So she's living in this world where it's basically just illegal for her to be alive, and if people find out that she's there, she's gonna be killed. She ends up in a situation where she has to be a part of these trials that like is supposed to like make people love their kingdom. Like, it's supposed to be like a, yeah, I love Ilya, you know, like how people are like, oh, America, like at like the Olympics, like kind of like that, but they're like these deadly trials that occur, and she has to be a part of them and still hide her secret. I do have to say, like, the first 400 pages, I was kind of iffy on it. I was like, I feel like it's a 3.5, but the last 100 pages, they got me. Let me tell you, I actually finished this book in a waiting room at the doctor's office. Because I had to go to the doctor and I only had 13 pages left, but I didn't have time to read them at my house. So I put it in my tote bag. I went to the doctor. After I filled out like all my paperwork and stuff, I was waiting on the doctor, and that's when I finished this book, and I was just like, and then I was like tabbing stuff like in the doctor's office. Yeah, it was great. It was great. I feel like you can tell that it's a debut novel, but that doesn't necessarily make it bad. Alright, now the rest of the books I read for videos for here. So I'm going to continue with my last fantasy book, and then I'll get into the romance books. The last fantasy book that I read this month, I read for AI Chooses My Reads for a Week, which will be in the description of this video if you want to watch it. I read Crooked Kingdom. This is the book that comes after Six of Crows. It was good. It was good. I feel like when I initially first finished it, I was like, oh my gosh, 4.5 stars. But I feel like I just need to make it 4 stars because I have not thought very much about this book after finishing it. I know like so many people I feel like love this book more than I did. Which is okay. It is, I tried to watch the show, but, they made it so, like, the Shadow and Bone trilogy takes place at the same time with Six of Crows, and that just doesn't really make sense to me, because that's, like, not the case. Shadow and Bone takes place, like, quite a bit before Six of Crows, and I feel like I understand why they were, like, trying to combine it, but I just wish they didn't do that, so I didn't end up finishing the show. It's very dark, and it honestly took me a while to get into the first book and this book. I ended up like liking the endings of both books, and I think they are really good books, but they're not my favorites, which is like so controversial. I feel like everybody loves these books, but I didn't love them as much as everybody else. But I still really did enjoy them. Basically, the first book in the series, Six of Crows, is about a heist, a pretty much impossible heist that the Six Crows have to pull off in order to get money and stay alive. And this is a continuation of that. A book I also read in AI Chooses My Reads for a Week was The Summer of Broken Rules. I also gave this 4 stars. It is a very cute rom-com that is lined with Taylor Swift lyrics, Taylor Swift references. If you like Taylor Swift and you're looking for a cute rom-com, this is the one for you. This is about Meredith Box. She's at Martha's Vineyard, where this takes place, for a wedding for her cousin, and the whole entire family and wedding party plays a game of assassin. And so you see her little budding romance with one of the groomsmen, Wit, and it's just a very cute, fun, light-hearted romance with a whole bunch of Taylor Swift references. So, like, how could you not want to read that? I gave it 4 stars. The last book I read in AI Chooses My Reads for a Week was Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. By the way, that is a reading vlog if you want to watch my experience reading these books. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. She wrote my favorite book, Daisy Jones and the Six. So I am trying to get through all of her books. But I do have to say, I think her backlog of romances aren't necessarily my favorite. I gave this 3 stars, which to me, that rating means I liked it. It's like I liked it, I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. It's kind of just there. Basically, we have Hannah Martin, who in the beginning of the book has the opportunity to make 2 decisions. And so what this is half of this book is her making the one choice and what her life would turn out if she made that one choice, versus the other half is like how her life would turn out if she made a different choice. So it's like 2 different stories being told of the same person, and it's actually kind of interesting to see how one decision can change the whole entire course of your life. Her romance books just very much give off, I'm like, oh, millennial. Acting like a millennial. And I have to say, I prefer her historical fiction far more than I prefer this, because the books like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones and the Six, Malibu Rising, and no way, I just said Sarikoto. Carrie Soto is back. I prefer those books over these, which she wrote these first. These are her first books, so maybe that makes sense. Now, for my reading romance books for a week, I completed only 2 books. One of those books were Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This book is very, very, very similar to this book. But that is not a spoiler because they have different endings. But, like, I loved this book. Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Fantastic book. It is so, so good. If you're only going to read one or the other, I would read Love in Other Words, because this book is like perfection. 5 stars. That being said, I really enjoyed this book also. I think it's a solid 4.5 stars. It was like so good. But yeah, it's like a copy and paste up until like the end. This book follows Persephone Fraser and Sam Florrick. So basically, way back in the day, they were besties and they had like a little romance going on. And then something happens and they don't speak for 10 years, 10 plus years, 12 years I think it is, where they have no contact with each other. And then all of a sudden she goes back to their small town on the water and sees him again, and then they start talking, and then it's just like dual timeline of then and now. And it's a very good book. It really is. But yeah, that is also pretty much the same plot of Love in Other Words. And you kind of just, you're reading this book trying to figure out what happened between them and why they no longer talk. And yeah, it's a second chance romance. Now, the last book I read this month was... Okay, so it's not the last book I read this month. The last book I actually read this month was Powerless. But the last book I'm going to talk about is When in Rome by Sarah Adams. I feel like this is also kind of Taylor Swift coded. It's not as obvious, but she's a pop star that likes to wear glittery outfits. It's a small town romance that is sort of like Grumpy Sunshine between pop star Ray Rose and small town boy Noah Walker. Ray Rose is trying to sort of catch a break from her hectic pop star life she's about to go on tour. She needs a little bit of a break. She watches a lot of Audrey Hepburn movies, and apparently in one of them, Audrey goes to Rome, Italy, and Ray Rose is like, I can't go to Rome, Italy. My battery's about to die. I can't go to Rome, Italy. I'm going to go to the nearest Rome by me because she lives in Nashville. So she goes to Rome, Kentucky, and that is where he lives. And then her car breaks down right outside of his house. And oh no, what happens? He's not going to let her die. It's really hot outside. It's like the middle of summer. So then he's like, oh my gosh, come live with me. And then it's a little romance. Will they, won't they? Loved it. A little bit Grumpy Sunshine up in here. It's a really, really good book. This is 4 stars. I loved this book. I think it's very interesting how I think about 4 stars because I'm talking about Crooked Kingdom. I'm like, I didn't love this book as much as other people did. But it's 4 stars and I gave this the same rating and I'm like, oh my god, I loved it. I don't know if you can trust my ratings. Anyway, I really like this book and I think more people should read it. Anyway, that's all I read this month. I hope you enjoyed this video. And I can't wait to make more for you. Bye!